Nanowrimo, and welcome back to another fashion channel. I'm J&J Books Corner, and today we are here to start a weekend reading vlog. So following Thursday through Sunday. That's only because I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish my audiobook today, and I'd like to document some of the process while reading this book, as it was one of my most anticipated books of the year. So we're going to start today. With that being said, let's go ahead and go through a quick little TPR, and the first book we're going to talk about is Angels of Indian Lake. I'll jump into like an actual review. I think I'll probably review it once I'm completely done with it, and we'll talk about it in like 3 or 4 minutes or something of this vlog. That's just only because it's the third book in a series, and I can talk a little bit of spoilers if I want there, 9 yards without any warning, or with warning and things. Angels of Indian Lake is the third book in the Indian Lake trilogy, the first 2 books being My Heart is Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper. The first book follows Jade as she is going through senior year, believing that she's going to be living through a modern day slasher, and what that becomes. This third book is an interesting time, that's all I will say. I'm very much enjoying it. I don't know it's going to be a 5. Ooh, mixed 5s, we'll see. I'm curious, but that's part of the reason why I want to talk about it. And we will talk about it. I will mention when you do see anything for Angels of Indian Lake in this vlog. Once again, I'm going to try to keep it to that one section. It will probably be completely spoilery filled just because I'm going to want to talk to somebody about it, and I have so many thoughts and opinions on it. That being said, let's move on to the next book. We have the above shelves. So the above shelves are all my unread books. I'm trying to get through a bunch of them over the course of the next few months, as I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to be unhauling a lot of them or not. And so this is basically my test round. I am allowed to DNF these books. I want to do anything I want with these. I mean, any book I read I can DNF, but these ones are a bit different. They have been sitting on my shelves for a long time, and I'm just hoping to get to them. Books I will not be reading for vlogs that will probably not DNF are memoirs, so I'm just going to skip over those. It would either be the next book over, depending on the number. To be fair, I'd really like to end up in these shelves along this wall, or the bottom shelf, just because I'm really familiar with up there. I wouldn't mind reading anything that's up there. I'm just really familiar with it. There are 70 books in total, and I have a number generator. I can't remember which side this one likes. This side, and we're just generate 56. Try Not to Breathe by Jennifer R. Herbert, the author of The Secret Year. I want to say this is between a thriller and a toxic relationship. I can't remember which one. It's relatively short though, which is great. I think it's just like a little over 200 pages. Yeah, we're looking at like 230 or so. This is what we're picking up. Thank you to my sister. She is the one who gifted me this. So, for Christmas, I'm pretty sure. I want to say this was like a sister gift. And now you guys know how it goes. Those are the 4 books I picked out for this vlog. I'll keep you posted. Hello! Let's close out this vlog. I read 3 books for you. I know I didn't document really the process of reading any of them. That was unintentional. I also started a 4th. I will probably continue to work my way through it, and I'll probably start the next weekend vlog early so I can kind of vlog my process while reading it just a little bit. I don't want to do a weekend, like a weekly vlog. I'll just update that one book until the actual weekend starts. But that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the book I DNF'd first, and then we will go into the 2 other books that I did finish. So the book I DNF'd was the book I picked from my shelves. This is called Try Not to Breathe by Jennifer R. Herbert. This is a book that's super fucking sad. Essentially why I didn't really vlog this weekend, and why I'm still committing to this, because I read one of my favorite books of the year and I want to get this video out to talk about that, my favorite book of the year. It's probably the reason why I didn't just like cancel it and just say fuck it, whatever, I just won't post it, was I was having a very bad mental week, and I decided I'm taking back the reins of my life, and I'm deciding to choose happiness over sadness, which is very amazing, and it's a good feeling, and I'm happy that it's like going through my body right now, because tomorrow is gonna be such an anxiety filled day. I want to remember that I'm choosing this, and I'm choosing to go do these anxiety-filled things so I can be happy, and then I can be fulfilled. And I know, like, once we are on the pathway that we're supposed to be on, I did not find Jesus, by the way. Once we're on the pathway that we're supposed to be on, I know that I will be, and I know that this is just a period of my life where it's not, or I'm not fully jazzing with it, but that's okay, because I can already sense that there's sections of my life that are coming that are going to be some of the best I've ever lived, and I just have to get there, and sometimes you gotta do shit you don't like to be able to get there, and that's really what it comes down to. And I can do shit I don't like. At least that's what I just keep telling my introverted self. That's what it truly means to love someone, is that you do shit you don't like in order to better yourselves. Okay. Off that note, this did not work for me because of the mental state that I was in. I tried reading it. I think I got looking like 100 pages in, which is about halfway through the novel. It's about this relationship between Ryan and Nikki. And so they're like in this town, and Nikki and Ryan end up running into one another. Ryan is a bad boy. He did something horrible that's not talked about, but people do know it, and he's kind of looked down upon in this community. Nikki is your Bella. She is someone who is brand new to this community, and she is going through some really, really tough shit as well. And it's a conversation about suicide and also some really other tricky subject matters dealing towards teens. And I'm not saying that it was like badly written, because I would disagree with that. Like, I think the comp titles that people are giving for at least the Horn book, which I don't know how much, like, ooh, Horn book, you know what I mean? Is a kind of funny story. And 13 Reasons Why. 13 Reasons Why is on my shelf somewhere. I don't know where that J. Asher novel sits, but she's there. And I love 13 Reasons Why, and 13 Reasons Why was such an important book for when I read it as a teenager, because there was no other books like it. So, and I read a kind of funny story a few years later, and I felt like it was just not as good, to be fair. I didn't really think that one was as good. I felt like the movie maybe did a little better. But there's also this like weird vibe when you put humor with such serious topics. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And in that case, it just didn't. This is a very serious, non-humor book. But there is this really complicated relationship at its forefront, and I just don't think there's enough pages in here to like really justify some of the subject matters talked about. And also the really difficultness, because I have a feeling it's an HGA. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't get to the end, and the characters weren't lovable enough for me to want to push through the tragedy of the novel, the trauma of it. So I just DNF'd it, and I have no desire to find out what happens, or if I do, I'll look up spoilers on the internet. That was the first one. Then I read the final book in Trials of Apollo. That one follows Apollo as the series itself follows Apollo as he is sent down to human. Zeus is mad at him, so he makes him human, and he's called Lester, and he has to do all these like, well, things. The first book takes place in Camp Half-Blood. This is the first series that I would completely say you have to read every book that comes before it. With the Heroes of Olympus series I recorded, I don't think you have to read Percy Jackson. I think you can skip the way through it, and honestly I kind of recommend it because I didn't love Percy Jackson as much as I love Hero Olympus. Hero Olympus is still the superior series in my opinion. We'll see if that changes with Nico, but Nico only has a single novel. So with Trials of Apollo, I didn't like the series, so I don't really know if I recommend, but it truly is a love letter to the stories that came before. So if you're someone who is scratching that itch and you haven't read it in a long time, you're like, oh, I really miss Percy Jackson, but I never did read the Trials of Apollo series, but you want to go back and have all your favorite characters with a very horrible, obnoxious, annoying main character, I would recommend the Trials of Apollo series. Also I would say, especially in this book, there's several comments about genitalia and things that just felt really weird and really out of place. And that's kind of how I felt about the whole series. I just felt like there's a lot of things in it that felt weird and out of place. When the book was working at every angle, it was perfect and it was great and I was having a good time. Then Apollo would open his mouth or make a funny joke or say something to his brain, and none of it worked. Apollo, bad character, should not have been the main. Well, probably should have been the main, but should have been written different. I don't really know. But either way, I felt like the ending was very satisfactory. I'd also mention that if you are caught up to date, but you've not read the Apollo series, but you're reading the mainline Percy Jackson series, this being Chalice to the Gods, I will mention Chalice to the Gods, that trilogy that is being formed around Percy's year in life, I'll say, is directly spoiled here. So you know all the events, you know exactly what happens there. So if there is some type of like, oh my god, what's going to happen here? I don't recommend reading this just yet. I recommend finishing out that series in maybe like 2 or 3 years from now, and then going back and reading Chalice of Apollo. I feel like maybe it'll be more satisfying in that way as well. I don't really know though, as they're not done. So maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? That being said, I finished it. I gave it a 4, and I do think it's definitely like one of the best ones of the series, of this Trials of Apollo series, not Percy Jackson as a whole. Moving on to the bulk of this review, the bulk of this video. I'm going to be honest with you. If you've never read Angels of the Indian Lake trilogy, if you've never read one of those, this is my pitch to you. It's about Jade Daniel. She is a senior in high school, okay? She believes she is running through a modern day slasher to the point where she actually thinks she did wish it upon herself. And then the book just kind of goes on from there. The first book, My Heart is a Chainsaw. It's such a beautiful title. It's such a beautiful cover. It's amazing. Is a slow burn horror. That means that most of the horror doesn't happen until the last 30 or so % of the novel. It's a good time once it gets there, but you do have to go through all these character developments. I would also like to mention that there are some really triggering topics. Look up your trigger warnings. It gets me every time. Don't Fear the Reaper, which is sitting behind me, is the direct sequel. It takes place 4 years after the events of the first one. That's a true slasher. It's gory from page 1. Non-stop. Then we have Angels in Indian Lake, the third book, which takes place 4 years after that event, and from this point on, there are spoilers. I can talk about the book without spoilers, but I can't talk about the whole series without spoilers. Because just saying who the main character of this first book, I think is a spoiler. It's like if you talk about Scream 3, like, I think by this point in our lives, we all know who the main character of Scream is. But if you've never seen Scream before and you're going through the whole thing and you don't understand the logics of slashers, knowing who the protagonist is of Scream 3, it's kind of a spoiler. Like, if you think about it like that, knowing the protagonist of any Scream movies outside of, like, the new ones. But even then, after you, like, if you watch Scream 5 and then you watch Scream 6, knowing that people are there, you know what I'm saying? It does ruin some of the suspense stuff. So I'm not here to ruin any suspense. I recommend reading them all together, all three of them back to back. It's a gory good time. I'm sure if you love the first one, trust me, you'll love the second one if you love the first one. Actually, I've heard if you love the first one, the second one's just not as good because it's like full action heavy. You'll love the third one. So it does come back and pick you back up. I recommend reading them all back to back. That's my own personal opinion. You can do what you want with that information, but I ain't changing. It's not a different opinion. That's just the way life is. That's where the cookie crumbles. That being said, because of this, spoilers. I'm not going to turn a screen black and white because it would just be black and white for the rest of the video, and that seems stupid to me. Even though I'm not talking about direct spoilers for Angels of the New Link, I am talking about direct spoilers for the New Link trilogy, because this book follows Jade Daniels 4 years after the events of Don't Fear the Reaper. She is now a history teacher, which is so poetic. And I'll start with the writing, and I'll start with some of the cool things that Stephen does here, and we'll touch on the acknowledgements, and then we'll actually touch on the story and the book itself, and then we'll have direct spoilers for this final installment. This is the first time Stephen Grant Jones has ever lived with these characters for as long as he did, which is a really fun and exciting way to do it. The writing here is top notch. Jade herself is the main protagonist. It is told from her point of view, first person. I won't spoil, well, I will eventually, but at this point in time in this review, in case this is just like you're just looking for my non-spoiler review of this book, I won't tell you why. That is, there is a reason. I think it's a beautiful reason, and I think if you have read any of the other books in this trilogy, I think it is very obvious, but it didn't hit me until like maybe like halfway through the novel, so you still have time to figure it out. You haven't figured it out yet, but there's a little twist with it. The actual reasons why the things are happening in the book are not, it's not like the best plot twist, because I don't think it makes total sense, but I'm sure it will on a reread experience. I reread all of these to get prepared for this third novel, as I had always planned to do. And the thing here with My Heart is Chainsaw, Angels, and Link, there are aspects of both those novels I didn't fully understand the first time, fully understand this time around. I'd also say that there are some very like popular movies, that popular horror films that maybe you've never watched before or heard of, just Bodies, 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 or I can't think, there's another one that was really prominent throughout this whole entire thing that had gigantic spoilers in it. Just like that one spoils Happy Death Day, this one spoils Bodies, 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 but it also spoils some other stuff as well, because they're always talking about the constant change of where the genre is going and the different subgenres that are brought into it and how that works and what that means for a slasher, and how Bodies, Bodies, Bodies kind of is a slasher but it's not, and how like Happy Death Day is a slasher but it's not, and that type of thing. And so there is that always conversation going on. Also, with Jade being the protagonist, people do call her rambly in the book is overwritten. I disagree with this full-heartedly. I think Jade is perfect, but that's my opinion. There are some extreme triggers here, especially in the final 20% of this novel. It gets really hard to read. It's really hard to see and talk about because it is so graphic. It's so much to a single person to consume. I don't want that to be scary to you, but I just want you to know that this is one of those books, just like the first one, because the second one touches on it, but it doesn't fully develop it. It's so much here, and it's not here until like it comes at you. I mean, there's a point in the novel where it's like very present and then it just stays present, but the implications that are brought forward until you figure out some results, they're hard to read and they're very harrowing. Oh my gosh. What else do we have? Oh, let's touch on the acknowledgements. So like I said, the ending didn't really work for me. So he does read the final chapter, which I had to read like 3 or 4 times to fully grasp what was going on. There's no character names, it's just pronouns and stuff, which I find so cool, and it's such a fun way to write. It's so experimental, and the whole book itself has different points of view. Like the second point of view outside of Jade's point of view is super experimental as well. I don't necessarily think the reveal for that point of view is as strong in my opinion, and I understand why some of the creative choices liberties were taken, especially with the acknowledgements, which made me appreciate some of these twists a bit more. So he talks about how he pants the entire thing, which I never knew. I'm sure it's also talked about the acknowledgments for Don't Fear the Reaper. His acknowledgments are always so good, so I can't recommend them enough. But this one, he particularly talks about how he didn't know how to end the trilogy and how it sat with him, and how he wrote, like, I Was a Teenage Slasher, which I have an e-arc for, which I will be starting eventually. How he talked about how that book and other books that he wrote in between, he wrote a few short stories in between as well. Those ones helped to build to this, but he grabbed things from different places, and how there was like a reveal that happens in the third act that he had no intentions of doing, and like all that sort of stuff, and it does fully layer it out and does make it work. You don't really know that until you read the acknowledgments, and it didn't fully work on that initial like checkout, I guess, if that's the thing. I do have to say this is a 5-star, which makes this a perfect trilogy in my opinion. It's a 5 stars across the boards, especially on this reread. Everything got bumped to a 5. It wasn't. It's perfect. I couldn't recommend it more. I guess I don't really have spoilers to talk about, and there are some really big things here, some really happy things and some not so happy things. It was a fucking good time. And that, my friends, is Angels of Indian Lake. I hope you guys enjoyed this little review portion. I know it's kind of hopefully not super long, but also like I wanted to document my process somewhere. And that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and